when journalists are pursuing for high clicks and readership, they might resort to unreliable sources and discussions and influencers for information from social media, and therefore report suspect science. Hello everyone, I'm Niina Sormanen. I'm a postdoctoral researcher from the LUT University, Lappeenranta University of Technology. I'm also collaborating and have past worked at the University of Turku in the project Unreliable Science. Today, I'm going to talk about the changing media landscape and its effects on the public science knowledge. Well, first of all, members of the public rarely read scientific journal articles and their published research. They mostly learn about scientific results from the mass media and news media. So journalists and news media have an important role in presenting science in a reliable manner. For example, for those interested in health advice, but also many other topics. And people today are also increasingly using social media as an information place for also scientific issues. But most people are not equipped or willing to verify online information themselves. This is why it is important that legacy media, news and also journalists should be present also on social media, providing verified scientific information. So, about today's scientific reporting. Science journalists, they used to be largely employed by legacy media and newsrooms, and they were the experts on scientific issues. But at the current environment, legacy media, they are struggling with economic issues, and many of them cannot hire permanent specialized science journalists anymore. This is why many science journalists are now working as freelancers, and non-specialized journalists have taken over many of the tasks that were formerly assigned to the science journalists. So this causes some problematic issues in the landscape. For example, newsrooms are aiming for high readership counts and they need clicks from social media and also other places to their digital sites. And this survival of the newsroom can hinder the journalistic fact-checking process. It means that fewer journalists are pursuing to deliver news fast, and they always are not equipped with science knowledge. This is why the media sometimes gives suspect science equal play with substantial discoveries. And news framing also, and aiming for scoops, that can affect the reliability of science reporting. So, journalists also need a lot of expertise to interpret the evidence of scientific research. They need to go deeper than the surface when they report about scientific results. They need to follow the stories through. They need to check the scientific process. For example, if they have published a story about science, they need to go and check if the science is still valid or it has been, for example, withdrawn. And although fact-checking is the fundamental quality of journalism, the vast scientific and online information landscape has made it very difficult for journalists also to verify information coming from the science institutions. So, when the journalists are forced to operate in the high time pressure reporting environment, and they may lack knowledge of science and also the scientific process, they can resort to reporting unreliable science to the public. For example, journalists might rely too much on press releases from universities and researchers, and they might publish them as such without checking the information's validity. And if they don't have enough science knowledge, they can also misinterpret the research and therefore give public unreliable scientific information. And if the journalists don't understand the academic research process, they might report on unreliable and even critically fabricated research. And also, when journalists are pursuing for high clicks and readership, they might resort to unreliable sources and discussions and influencers for information from social media, and therefore report suspect science. Thank you. This was my intake on the media landscape and its effects on public science knowledge.